Okay, CR85R, we're going to do up the back brakes now. Young lad, I don't know how he glue out a pair of brakes on it because truthfully he's all throttle and no brake normally, but so what you got here is there's a plug in the back, looks like that. Okay, that's often stripped out. This one's had some hammering on it. If you haven't got a tool like this, an impact socket, screwdriver, then a little bit of heat here. It's aluminum, so don't go crazy. Brake fluid is highly flammable, so just be careful. You can heat it up a little bit and usually make that a little easier. Then you got an Allen head in here. I don't know what size it is. I think it's a 5 or a 5.5 millimeter. Not surprisingly loose. Okay, and you're just spitting out this pin. And the pin is the only thing that holds the brakes in on these. You don't need to take the caliper off. You don't need to take the back wheel off. Nothing. Okay. And it does get a little corroded in there because a lot of dirt and stuff will get onto that. Once that's done, brake pads will basically fall out. There you go. Okay, there's your brake pads. You can see the front part here, that little area. That just sits in a channel on the mount part here that sits on your swing arm. So they don't even go into the caliper technically. They sit up there and the pin goes through the holds back. You can see there's not a whole lot of material left there. Yeah, that one's down to the steel just about in spots, so it was a sliver. I don't know how it's still even attached. Okay, so we've got ourselves a set of loose ones here, Moose Racing. You can see a quick comparison here. The old and the new. So I'd say they're a little worn out. Okay, the one thing you're going to have to fight with is take the cap off your master cylinder and push that piston back. Okay, the piston in there. And this is where a lot of times, sometimes it's easier to take the caliper off at this point. The piston generally will move pretty good. And remember, you're prying against the brake disc, so don't go hard and just be patient. You can actually watch it move. It will go. Yeah, this was moving pretty good. Okay, so once that piston's back far enough to clearance the new pads, push the caliper in, slide the back one in. That front, again, you can't miss the slot. You'll see it exactly there. Same for the front. You probably have to pull the caliper out. They got enough? Yeah, I'm good. Okay, so make sure your front's in that slot, hold it in place, and put your pin back in. Just push up slightly and slam your pin home. If they're not in up front properly, chances are you're not going to get the pin in, or they'll be hanging down and you'll see it. It'll be quite obvious. It's a pretty simple setup to do. I'll show you a close-up here in a minute. You don't got to go crazy tight. So here's the spring I'm talking about, and that just sits in there. All right, that's just an anti-rattle spring. There's a pin where it goes through. You can see the front of the pad, and there's a slot right in here in this housing. And that's where the front sits. And the last thing is your tiny little cap. None of this has to be crazy tight. Okay, the brakes will need to be pumped up once or twice to reset the piston. There you go. All right, back brakes. Okay, front brakes. A lot of people think because the brake's on that side, that's the side you got to work with. But the truth is, the pins that you need are these ones right here on the inside, so the right side. You pull those two pins out and your pads come right out. The trick here is working through the spokes. Okay, same size Allen key as the backs. And these be a little bit of a handful. Sometimes you'll get right where a spoke is right in the way. You'll have to rotate the wheel a bit. Oh yeah! Alright, a few seconds of heat, see if that did the job. Every time. I know I speed through a lot of these videos to shorten them up for you, but that was like 10 seconds of heat. Not much to it at all. And you want to heat the bolt, not the aluminium if you're in Europe. There you can see they get pretty dirty. Okay, so once that's done, you can literally push your pads right out. You can see there they are coming out, and they're pretty dirty. Alright, just a little square thing. Those are the pinholes that hold it in. You can see there wasn't a lot of material left there. Now for the other one, you just push your caliper and you can see it's falling out already. Sometimes it helps to have the wheel up, but since I got it strapped to the table here, I can't really rotate the wheel. There's our other one. Okay, so that easy to get your pads out. Same thing here, we have to push that piston back. And it goes back really easy. I'm just using a screwdriver and gently prying on it. I literally put the screwdriver in like this between the disc and the piston and turned it, and it pushed the piston back. You can see quite a bit less material on the fronts for obvious reasons. Again, you just have to manhandle the caliper a little bit to slide these guys in. Okay, well, never fails. If you say something's easy, that's when it turns around to bite you. My caliper wasn't moving, so I couldn't get my new pads in. The pin that holds the caliper on the bottom is completely dry of grease and was basically seized up in there. It was moving, but not much. So I put an impact driver on it, just spun it a bunch, heated up the grease that's in there, and slid it out. Now I'm going to go clean that up, put some WD-40 in the hole, re-grease this, and put this back in. Okay, with that pin freed up, there's no problem to put the new brake pad in like it's supposed to be. The old ones fell out because they were pretty worn. And that's how easy they should be to go in. Hardest part here is lining up those pins. Just like that. Okay, I did put some grease on those pins before I put them back in. And that's how easy it is to do front brakes. And this was actually more difficult because I had to clean a pin. Normally you just pull these out, squeeze back the piston, slide in the new ones, put the pins back in. So a few extra minutes work, but still one of the easiest brake jobs you're ever going to do. And there we are. Pump up those front brakes. There we go, we got brakes again. It's strapped in, or else I'd show you. Okay, so hopefully that helped you out. That's your front and back brakes on the 2006 Honda CR85R. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll get you on the next one.